In God's new 10 new commandments, number 7, always keep the child in your soul alive. We have become a nation where we have aborted our child in our souls. Children are always learning, playful, having fun. In our politics, we have aborted that child in our soul. Our politics is not playful, serious, vengeful, not forgiving. Stop learning. And because of that, that's why our world's situation has gotten so much worse. We talk about the real child and to prevent real abortions. Well, let's begin with our souls. Is that our practices of doing that because of our politics have gotten so serious, we put it on our airwaves, gives people hopelessness in the real communities because of that, because of the abortion of our aborted child in our souls. Many people who probably are on the airways probably have relationships that are going south. Divorce already happened, or whatever it might be. Maybe you can reborn that child in your soul, that not only you can get back that relationship, your kids or your ex or whatever, but you will find that your airways could be changed as well to prevent real abortions from happening in the communities. That seriousness on the airways, real abortions happen because people feel hopeless, and that leads to real abortions. So think about many people. How about the child in your soul? Is it alive? Has it been gone for a while? And that's why your airways are such that you don't allow people to get on the airways and discuss things openly, because of the fear. Gets back to number 5. Always do not be controlled by fear. You don't want to have your airways allow people to banter around ideas to solve problems like the family, why people have given up hope. And that is the key to solving a lot of our community problems. So please, reborn that child in your soul. This last part is probably the most important of them all. God's new commandment, number 7, always keep the child in your soul alive. As like I mentioned before, our politics has gotten so serious. The way we're so greedy with money to not allow the freedom of people to develop their own companies, But the thing is, the halls of Congress, we can learn, if this ever will happen in my dream, that we can learn from kids how they behave. Now, people say, well, kids really, they got their moments. Well, that's because they're either hungry, tired, or they're sick. And of course, that's partly because of our greediness as adults, that we don't give opportunities for families to feed themselves, or insurance companies cut back on procedures for parents or even for the kids. But that's like I mentioned before. But I think the solution would be to us to clear the House of Congress, and as long as these kids are well fed, they're well rested, and they don't have they're not sick. Let's put let's just allow toddlers to get into this house right here. And we should have hidden cameras all over the place, and we should observe them, how we should behave on the House of Congress. And that's where the key that God is mentioning to us, I feel, how we should behave, is look at a child. Now, some people in the Christian faith, that's Matthew 18:2. Go ahead and read it. And that's the key, how we can solve how House of Congress should behave. So that's what I think we should do. Back up, empty it, allow a bunch of toddlers, and just observe how we should behave to each other. That's it. This is the other part I wanted to mention. This is where contests and people who fund these contests can come in and fund ideas, art, videos, etc., sponsored by people all over the world. We can come up, first of all, like I said, the technology could be more user-friendly. So people from vets to seniors to people with blind who could tell stories. They could be able to put together art easily to unite this country. When people drive up to the convenience stores, instead of those lottery ticket advertisements, they can say, "This week we're going to pay out big money for digital art, digital videos, etc." And this week you could make it big, and of course you bring people hope in their lives, unite the country. It could be anything from health education. Maybe there could be ideas for people to learn everything if you've been diagnosed with a cancer, how to cope. Everything from maybe produce new TV shows in which it shows scenes where it helps people learn how to cope for somebody who's been diagnosed with a disease, those with mental illness, those with drug addiction, how families could help those with those situations, and also help those who are in this situation, being diagnosed as such. We could come up with videos on how to help the homeless get educated. Maybe the homeless could develop their own video of ideas of how what would help themselves. And then these contests could say, hey, wow, we never thought about that. This is a good idea. Technology could come in, companies could make it really user-friendly. Maybe there's, let's say, a homeless person who, let's say there's a contest that says, oh, we like to have ideas for just music that just kind of perks people up, okay? And then maybe if the big winner, maybe a movie producer will say, wow, we can use that in our movie. And you say $1 million is the winner. You bring hope to people and say, hey, did you know so-and-so, he was homeless. He won the music contest that cheered people up. And he now has a house, big house. So these are the ideas that they could come from the arts. Wow. I mean, everything from uniting the country to movie production, to job training, to health education. I mean, it's just endless. If the big people, the money interest, would pump their money into industry like that. And health insurance companies would stop just giving money to the pharmaceutical companies. They say, hey, maybe we should put aside so much money for health education. Things like that can be the creative way that we can help our nation, help our debt, and etc. And these are the ways to innovation, etc. And from here, this will give satisfaction more than how much money you have in your 401k. Wow, this is the possibilities when we bring the child back in our souls again. We just see all kinds of combination of wonder in our lives, not only within our minds, but in society as well. Imagine the possibility of new vaccines developed everywhere. The possibility of peace all over the world. Possibility of a new revelation into our own minds, the happiness. Just the possibilities are all over the place when we bring that child back in our souls for everything we do. And practices how we deal with our neighbors. The practices we do with on our job, on our airways. I mean, it's just the possibilities are all over the place. This is what happens when we reborn the child in our souls. So the next time you see a child somewhere, maybe at dinner or out walking by, look at that child and think of the possibilities, what we could do in our world and our minds and our neighborhoods. That are the possibilities. As explained by the child that have been born in our souls, can create these problems. The regulator who will give a ticket to someone and not think about that maybe that person is going through some bad luck and say, well, these are the rules. That's the aborted child in the soul. To realize that there might be some other situations that can fit in the puzzle. Because you do that, no matter what role you play, that child will maybe lose a parent, or their parents break up, or something. And that child does not grow up to be that great researcher in the vaccine production, or a contributor to cancer research, or something like that. A lot of kids are affected by parents being, given a ticket, let's say, just for example, or the homeless person right now. No services are given because people have written them off, or people with mental illness, people have written them off. There's no hope for them. How do you know that maybe one of them has a child who's a rocket scientist in research development for the military? And because you've written off and regulate those with mental illness or those with who are homeless, no hope, because of that, it affects the psyche of these researchers who may work for the military, of the kids, that is. How do you know that that might not change the equation of how China's rocket scientists are just making leaps and bounds, and ours are getting doing not much because their parents have been pretty much written off by society because they're homeless or mentally ill? The hacking can be from power outages can be derived from one little simple equation. There's an old saying: if there's a will, there's a way. You reduce the will, you reduce the way. Hatred, the will, is what is behind the way. People will find a way to do evil acts like hacking, electrical hacking, etc. If we had the child in us and the connection with the people, the souls around the world, and really thought about maybe a generation ago we were somebody regulator or something happened, and we were tough on the parents and the kids who saw this experience, grew up and always hated the U.S. because of it. I don't know what the situation is overseas, but maybe that child has always hated the U.S. or Israel or Palestinians or whatever the case may be, or it doesn't matter which group of people you're talking about. And that hatred is, they were a child and experienced it, and that gave them a big will to do an act of finding a way for hacking, for terrorist attack, for whatever, a war, etc. And that's where we need to get back our humanity and realize that, think about the kids who are involved in these situations. Do we still get tough with the parents for when that child could be, instead of becoming hated towards the West or whatever, could be a contributor to Genome Project for vaccines, etc. Then, of course, the last part, the U.S. will go bankrupt, but this story continues, is that we've aborted the child in our souls, in which we're not open to new ideas, new concepts. We especially don't invest in new ideas. And that also derives from the being controlled by fear by the rich, that they're more interested in profits than they are investing in people's lives. And some of those lives include the kids who grew up impoverished, and they might have had the talent to grow up to contribute something positive to the world, but yet because of our greed and fear of rich people becoming poor, and also because some of the rich have no humanity, or they've aborted the child in their own souls, that those kids did not turn out to contribute later on in society. This is where this story begins. We shall never enter into the promised land in our minds, and of each other, unless we do two of the most important things. Number 5, do not be controlled by fear. And of course, number 7, always keep the child in your soul alive. And these are the answers, as well as the other ones, God's 10 new commandments, which will prevent number 9, Hex, World War III, and the U.S. will lose. And number 10, Hex, the U.S. will go bankrupt. This story continues. I think in conclusion, after watching the video, you will see that once we put God's 10 new commandments into our practices of business, family life, politics, media airwaves, we shall obtain beauty in all of our lives, and this can be the new beginning for our nation and for the world. To be continued, and upward, onward with hope. The end.